שלום וברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל דוק אביב ה-22. אנחנו מאוד שמחים לארח איתנו היום את במאי הסרט אפיצנטר, הוברט צאופר, סליחה. אורך השיחה יהיה חצי שעה, ואנחנו מזמינים אתכם להשאיר שאלות בכל שלב של השיחה באזור של ה-Q&A. בבקשה תימנעו מלהשתמש בפונקציה של הצ'אט, ואתם יכולים גם להשאיר שאלות בעברית, אנחנו נתרגם אותם. דוק אביב מודה לפורום התרבות האוסטרי על תמיכתם בסרט. ועכשיו באנגלית. Hello and welcome to the 22nd Doc Aviv Film Festival. We're very honored to have here with us Hubert Sauper, the filmmaker of Epicentro. The webinar is going to last 30 minutes. We invite you to leave your questions in the Q&A section at any time during the conversation. Please do not use the chat function. We wish to thank the Austrian Cultural Forum for their support. Hi, Hubert. Very happy to have you with us. And I wanted to start by actually asking you what brought you to Cuba? Your former films, they're not the first, but your former films were about Africa. Or maybe they were about Europe, or maybe they were about this transitional movement of colonialism and global capitalism, but now Cuba. So if you can tell us a little bit about this.
Nice to talk to you. I'm sorry, I'm on a parking lot of an airport here. It's a very comfortable place, but I will try to give you good answers. First, as a documentary filmmaker, the word "about" is always a critical word because you kind of said it yourself. When I make a film in the Congo, it's not necessarily about the Congo, and especially the kind of films I'm doing. If there's anything I could call about, it's more about us anyway, us Europeans, us Americans, and essentially asking the question, what the fuck are we doing in the Congo? So what are we doing over centuries? What are we doing to the world? This is has become my kind of theme, and more important and more interesting. How do we kind of create and renew a narrative around our ongoing global crimes that kind of makes us emerge still as people who are good willing, helpful, charitative. And with on the moral high ground, so that is really interesting. And in Epicentro, this new film, I was essentially trying. I mean, it is in Havana, and it's for some people, of course, it looks like it's a film about Havana or about the people of Cuba, which is also true in a way. But what is more important, it's more about the soul of a pathetic, mindset, which is a colonial, imperialistic, interventionist mindset, and it's about the American Empire, Epicentro. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people who are listening to us now have not seen my film yet, my new film. I am especially happy that it was well premiered in Sundance, and it won the Grand Jury Award because, of course, Sundance is, in a way, the epicenter of audiovisual intelligence in North America, and that made me really happy. So let me just give you a short pitch. Epicentro is trying to kind of dissect the moment when the U.S. became a world empire. And as everyone knows that in the U.S. There's a big day called the Independence Day, where everyone celebrates the independence from colonial oppression from the Europeans. But of course, exactly 120 years ago, 122 years ago, the U.S. did become an exterior world empire, and it was essentially happening overnight in one quiet night in the harbor of Havana when an American battleship blew up. It's called the Maine. That led to the Spanish-American War, and the Spanish-American War was the first war of intervention, which was followed by, countless wars in the 20th and 21st century in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan. And, the list is long. So that's the short pitch. So Epicentro is more a film about America, but it's shot mostly with children and in Havana and in 2018, 19.
I like how in your films you go somewhere in order to make a film about somewhere else. Like you fly to Sudan in what would be like a homemade jet in order to, so you fly to Sudan in order to make a film about Europe. You fly to Cuba in order to make a film about the US. I like this movement in your films. But in this film, you also make a particular argument about cinema. And I wanted to ask you to maybe articulate it. What role does cinema play in this movement that you're trying to depict in Epicentro?
Yeah, well, what I said before, history is, it's about what is the narrative? What is the narrative of my own life, your life? You split up, or you fall in love, or what is your narrative? How do you tell this story? And of course, your story is not necessarily the same as the other person's story. But when you're a group of people as big as a nation or as big as the United States, imagine how a narrative kind of unfolds of who are we, why do we do, what is American, what is un-American, why do we do what we do, why are we the way we are, and this narrative is of course born from Europe. It's, mostly Europeans went to North America and became Americans. Everyone knows the story, by killing a few million people. But the narrative of the US when it became an empire was multiplied by a new technology,
Yeah.
which was hypnotizing millions of people and bringing a relatively peaceful nation to shout for war. And that was this technology was called cinema, and it was used for the first time in 1898, exactly coinciding with the explosion of the Maine. So the birth of cinema, the birth of Hollywood, and the birth of the American empire all happened in Havana during one night, essentially. And what is so super interesting to me is that the films that are supposedly depicting history are, from the beginning, since the beginning of cinema, to a very big extent, fake. So, for example, what is history is not what happens, but how it is written or how it is perceived. So, do you want me to give you an example about
Yes.
that, or okay?
Yeah.
So again, I presume a lot of people haven't seen Epicentro, so I give you a hint. The thing is that the battleship Maine exploded in 1898, one night in February. 250 or 280 sailors died. Very few survived. Almost no one kind of the witnesses died of this event, and it happened at night. But the world has witnessed this through this cry called "Remember the Maine," and by seeing it in film. And it was this event was reproduced and actually filmed in the first special effects films made by Thomas Edison's cameraman and other companies at the time in 1898. And the explosion of the Maine was reconstructed in a bathtub in New York with firecrackers, little boats this size, and smoke of cigars, and that was a explosions on a high sea, naval battles, were recreated as a special effect. By then, the visual kind of literacy was, of course, not very distributed, and people saw this as a historic document. And from that little special effects explosion with firecrackers in a bathtub came a tsunami of young people, signing up for the Navy, going to the Philippines, fighting the Spaniards, etc. So the so what is history, what is true and what is not true is of course until today the biggest question, and especially media. I mean, today it's kind of it's like an outright chaos because people edit, quote unquote, their own films on YouTube every day, and most people think that they can see clearly what is fake and what is not, but of course we cannot always. Yeah.
I mean,
So
because we're talking.
So it's yeah.
No,
No.
I mean.
So I'm just saying. So, I listen to you.
Okay. I mean, because we're talking about like cinema as something that is very structured, it made me think in what way your film correspond with this, structured narrative of history, the failed structured narrative of history that cinema provide us. And what I like about the film that it constantly moves between being something more structured to be more open. I would even say unraveled. We find ourselves walking with the protagonist on the street and kind of like open to whatever encounter. And I mean, I would even dare say that I mean, this is something that I know that I really like about your films, that there is something, you always come with a question and with an idea of what you want to do, but then there are like the moment where the film opens up and is changed by the people that you meet. So I was wondering if you can address this also. I mean, walk us through the way you work with your protagonist, especially the kids. Also, assuming that I do think that quite a few people already saw the film. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the protagonist. It sounds like in fiction, feature film. It's more like I don't know a good word actually. The personage. Yeah, the people in my films are, of course, hand-picked, and I spent many years to make a film, so it takes me sometimes a long time to find the right environment, the right place, and the right kind of family, so to say, to make a film. I share a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions. I mean, I always have more questions than answers. But this is called a Q&A. I don't know if you should call it maybe Q and Q. But it's like I communicate a lot with the people I film, and I create a climate of thought that we share. Is it children in the Sudan or in Cuba, or is it grown-ups or old people or people from a very different cultural field? It doesn't matter. I can communicate as good as I can what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, why am I making films. I show a lot of stuff that I make, even the footage I shoot with people. We sometimes look at it straight afterwards and share and laugh about it. So I mean, there comes a point when the people, there comes a point when the people I am with are completely at ease and feel like they are taken for serious, and which is the case, and they communicate, in a very, very unusual way sometimes, and that's so magic about this kind of non-fiction cinema. And my children in Havana, Leonelli and Ainelis, they are literally stars. I mean, they are just so amazing that I don't know what to say. I could never think of a way to make fiction and find such characters as actors. It's almost impossible. Seems impossible to me.
For how long were you shooting?
Is it cutting off? Hello?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Yeah.
I think we're losing the. Are we losing?
Hubert? I mean, I can see you. Can you? Yeah.
I can see you now. It's off for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, it froze for a minute. I wanted to ask you, for how long did you shoot in Havana?
For 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
3 years. I just went there to live, and my little home in Havana is also in the film. You can see it with this roof terrace with the hammock. That's my home.
Yes.
In the film, it looks like Una's place.
Yes.
But she's playing the ukulele.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is my home. It was also my office, my editing place, place where we were hanging out, cooking, and celebrating life.
Yes, and once again, I mean, it's part of this intimacy that the film is able to depict, but also while you're documenting or while you're with these, I don't know how to call them, because they, as you said, I mean, they're not protagonists, but they are stars.
Yeah.
But I mean, also while you're shooting Havana, Cuba itself is going through a pretty massive transformation and not a good one. So if you can talk a little bit about this, what's happening in Cuba in these years. I think you're shooting exactly when Cuba is opening up back to the US. So after being this kind of like, sealed place of resistance to like US capitalist imperialism, all of a sudden it opened up and it changed the landscape and it changed the people. So if you could talk a little bit to that.
Well, yes, it happened like almost at the same time as Castro died, Fidel Castro. Just before Castro died, came to Cuba, and it was like the moment where everyone thought, now something amazing is happening, something is going to fundamentally change, and it did not actually. I mean, for tourists who come, they can see a change because there's more and more five-star hotels in Havana, but that's a ghetto for tourists. It's not the country, So essentially, not much is changing, and I think Cuba is really in a terrible moment, I must say, because it is a victim of an embargo that is unique on the planet from the US. That Obama was trying to open or like cancel, but the strange man in the White House now, it doesn't look like he wants to cancel it. So it's essentially what the U.S. policy now is to press Cuba to its limit and to try to make it give in, and the Cubans are not ready to give in. They're fighting. What is the misunderstanding of is that the embargo is supposedly designed to press the regime, the Castro regime. But what it does is press the people, you know. It's the same with any embargo. When there was an embargo against Gaddafi, Gaddafi became more and more powerful.
Yeah.
Because he could put himself in this position of victim and anti-imperialist, etc. So the embargo is always counterproductive and very, very inhuman. And I must say, you maybe know that every year the Security Council is voting for or against the embargo, which is the embargo from the US against Cuba. And every year, like the last vote was every country on the planet voted against this embargo. Every country except two, which is the US and your country. That is really something else, you know. And Israel, of course, I mean,
It's also funny because Israel is also, I mean,
I don't know enough about Israeli policies, but the Israeli government now, you know, I don't know enough about it, but it is something else also. So so it's really like the whole, like 200 nations on the planet decide that this is impossible, this is inhumane, this should not be, and two nations say no, we have to keep up the embargo against Cuba. That is really something. Yeah. And when you see my movie Epicentro, it's of course not about that. It's not for or against the Castros. It has to do with you know, what I just said before, American imperialism, and about the humans who are embroiled in it and how humans see it. And that is fantastically interesting and also very universal, by the way. You know, it's not necessarily only in Cuba. But what is very special in Cuba is that it's among the places on the planet which is the most politicized and extremely educated. So you know, there are not many places in the world where you can speak with 10-year-old people about geopolitics.
yeah, exactly what I wanted to say. I
And
mean,
you can do it.
yeah, this was something that was so impressive to me when I saw the film. How articulate these kids are about political critique in a way that I think many adults aren't. You know, and especially when we're thinking about how cinema give way to this populist perception of history or politics, you know, we lose with it some of our critical faculties, and the kids in the film, your kids, are you know, spot on. I mean, I do need to ask the question because we get attached to them. You know, the intimacy that you produce with the people you work with, I think it also affects the viewers. And I guess all of us want to know what happened with them now with the kids. Are you still in touch with them? How do they? Because you can also see it throughout the film. You know, the you know, these tourists ghettos, I mean, affect the children. I think for me it was one of the saddest scenes in the film where the kids kind of like, you know, roam around this hotel that is not for them, and they're very happy that to be able to enter it, but it's not for them. Yeah, if you can say a little bit about where they are today, or you know, are
Well,
with them, or
one of the fantastic. Well, I mean, I talk to them almost every day. They're my family. You know, this is we are. I mean, friends for life, of course. I mean, I say, of course. I mean, it's because this is how I make movies. I went to live in Havana, and I'm not in Havana now because it's not possible to go. But as soon as it opens, I'm gonna be back, of course. The one of the most fantastic things of the Cuban Revolution is this kind of beautiful act of disobedience against patriarchy, against colonialism, against power. And this is in the veins of these children. So, and it's also in my, I mean, this is something that makes me tick, you know, like I can go with a stupid little airplane and screw in front of the nose of warlords in Sudan, and and I win. I mean, until now, and that's a great victory for me. And these children in Havana, they also have, they know that they cannot go into 5-star hotels to have a swim, but of course they are both, of course, victim of Cuban and Western Hollywoodian propaganda. And what is Hollywoodian propaganda? That it's great to have a pool and to jump in a pool. So they see these big, beautiful swimming pools in Old Havana where they can never go. And because I can go with the face I have and with the way I look, and we just decided to screw the rules and go. And we made it through the gatekeepers, and we were playing to be American tourists, and we had a great laugh, and they jumped in the pool and pissed in the pool also, which is one of the most craziest scenes in the film. It is a political act in the context of this film.
Yeah.
It is a statement. I mean, I don't want to explain the scene now, but it's like a 10-year-old kid pissing in a pool of a 7-star hotel where it's not allowed to be in. Makes your heart beat higher because you're like, this kid, doesn't give a shit, and it's gonna win. So that's why, that scene is if you show this scene to someone out of context, it's almost like a holiday video or something, But in the context of film, and as the children as the protagonists, as the stars, it becomes just so much bigger than life, And that's also the magic of cinema. It is more than we can think of, more than we can imagine, and more than we can control. That's also that's like the crazy part also of cinema, is that I make political films. Once they are out there, millions of people see them around the world, and I have no control how it is seen, how it is interpreted. You never know. It can go one way or the other.
I mean, even now in the conversation we have, I told you, for me, the scene was very sad. I saw it as their defeat in a way, because the space is being taken away from them. And you were telling me, no, that's actually very triumphant, because, they go into the space that is blocked for them, and they piss in the swimming pool. So I think, even the conversation we have right now about this scene, I don't know, shows us, I think, a certain power of cinema. I do need to ask you a question, because for me, you really are a model of a filmmaker who's very politically engaged. I told you that I saw also your former films, and I really like them. And it's also my last Q&A in the festival after a long week. And it's a very special festival in, I think, some of really triumphant ways, but also, there's some stuff that we lost. And I wanted to ask you, in light of the last 6 to 9 months, where is cinema for you? At least specifically, I can't ask you to speak for the entire cinema, but in a world that's going through such drastic changes, in which exactly the powers that you normally criticize in your films, gaining more power. And cinema itself is losing its public space in a way. You and I need to talk to a computer screen. We can't engage in person with audiences. If you had some thoughts about where is cinema heading, or what its future?
Well, I'm not a good prophet, but one of the things we forget a lot is that cinema is not just the fact that the screen is big and the sound is good. It's also that we sit inside of a crowd and we feel the energy of the crowd.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we feel that how people react or cry or scream or laugh. That is an amazing energy, and it's of course used for the last 120 years by despots, by religious crazy nuts, by artists like myself, and like everybody. You know, it's kind of tapping into this. But de facto, I mean, Epicentro opened in cinemas in France. It's now in cinemas in 80 cities, I think, in France. It's going well. People just have masks.
Yeah.
But in some way, you can also say it's no longer there. It's like so Epicentro speaks about the Big Bang that created cinema. That is de facto uh, so 1898, and now is the end of it. I hope not completely, but um, it's really painful also, because when you make films, you work so hard, like a chef who prepares a very fine dinner, you know, and with very amazing ingredients, and then when you serve it in the box of like a burger box, this whole dinner we cooked no longer the same, and and people see my films online and they go like, oh yeah, it's great, but when they see the same film on the screen, they go like, wow, you can change the edit, it's so much better. And I said, no, you just saw it, you were different, or you saw it differently. So that's really painful.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it will, of course, survive. Maybe maybe in a more special form. It will be maybe more of a celebration to see a film in a group. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't care if this like, theme park style cinema ends forever. You know, these stupid like explosions and war films and people being shot on close-ups in hundreds with special effects. You can hear the blood. I I don't care if that never comes back. You know? Maybe it's. I mean, I have a special disgrace from these kind of films because I saw real acts of war in real life. You know, I saw real people being killed in the Congo. So I think it's like it's just a disgrace that even exists. You know, that form. But of course, it's just another form of the same medium. You know. But so if this multiplex sensational cinema that is an anesthesis of your brain that gives you this position of a complete idiot that takes it in like a blow in your mind, a blow in your soul. Let it just let it end. No, I don't
Let
care.
it die.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what's coming next. But what I do know is that you and I talking is also a form of cinema. It's also audiovisual, and it's also a form of globalization, which is good. You know, some people say like I try to kind of frame me as an anti-globalist, which I'm not. I mean, I just depict problematic aspects of it. So that is a good aspect, and I think the future language of humanity is images and sound that move. You know, it is the language, uh, the only universal language really created by Charlie Chaplin, who is also an Epicentro.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
It was
I'm
a
just
great
joking.
reference.
Yeah.
Hubert, I could stay here and speak about Epicentro for at least an hour, but I'm acutely aware that you have a flight to catch, and that I need to let you go so you won't miss it. I wanted to thank you for the film that I think actually now resonates even more. I can't wait to see it on a big screen, as I was hoping to and anticipating when I selected it for Doc Aviv. But also I want to thank you for kind of like, concluding this conversation with these words, I mean, which is basically, I mean, to kind of like to continue and insist about this kind of like form of connectedness or public sphere that is created with cinema. So thank you so much, and enjoy the flight. And thank you for the film, and thank you for being with us today.
Nice to meet you, and hello to everyone in beautiful Israel.
A
bientôt.
bientôt.